Hi, everyone. How's it going? Before we start, I'm curious to know where everyone is from. So could you please share your location in the chat so I know where's everyone from? Oh, Auckland. Houston, Texas. Oh, welcome. There's Rachel from Denver. Kate from San Francisco, Austin. Wow. Washington, LA. Hi. Hi, Anita. Yeah. Glad to see people from all over the world. Yeah. This from Denver. Yeah. Lana from Boulder. Right. Okay. Start of Boulder, Denver. All right, then let's start the event. Welcome everyone to Women Who Code Boulder, Denver. Those who are new to this event or Women Who Code community, I'm Rafna, Director of Women Who Code Colorado chapter. I would like to say a few things about Women Who Code. Women Who Code is a nonprofit organization with a global presence, over 200,000 members, presence in 20 countries, 70 plus cities, and it's expanding. So we are very proud to say we are all over the world. Our mission is to inspire women to excel in technology careers. Our vision is to create a world with women as representatives, as CEO, founders, software engineers. We would like our women as a representative to all levels of tech industry. Women who could have the tools and resources and network to stay in the industry longer and excel to top leadership positions or meet their career goals. So we have a website where womenwhocode.com. You can find all about us and our networks, our events. And we have YouTube channel where we constantly upload all the resources for career advancement. So please do check out womenwhocode.com to know more about us and our events. We do have a code of conduct. Women Who Code is an inclusive community. Our code of conduct applies to all Women Who Code events and online communities. You can read the full version and access our incident report at womenwhocode.com/code of conduct. So tonight we have a special event. We have partnered with Outco. Outco trains software engineers on technical and communication skills that help accelerate job search and also help to advance your careers. So in the agenda for tonight, we have two sessions. Salary negotiation is one of the important processes in hiring interviews. So first we're gonna hear from Cristina Costa about negotiating salary as a woman in tech. Cristina is the head of learning and development and lead career coach at Outco. In the second session, we'll be learning about authentication, how authentication works from Sara Daqiq. She's currently an Uber engineer and Outco teacher. So if you have any questions during the event, please use the chat or QA. Also, we'll have a QA at the end of each session to answer your questions. So yeah, let's start. I'm handing the mic or Zoom room to Cristina.
Thank you so much, Rafna, for that kind introduction, and welcome, ladies. Happy hump day, happy Wednesday. Nice to meet you all. As Rafna mentioned, my name is Cristina Costa. I am one of the coaches at Outco and head of learning and development. As you all probably know, if you are on the job search, the salary negotiation piece is probably one of the scariest parts of the whole job search process. I am actually going to ask you guys a few polling questions before diving into my presentation. Well, first of all, I'm curious, is anyone here in the Boston area? Anyone in Boston? Boston in the house? You can put it in the chat. Anyone from Boston? Oh, Nicole's from Boston. Hi, Nicole. No one else? Just Nicole? No worries, no worries. Nicole, oh, Khadijah's from Boston. You sound familiar, Khadijah. I feel like I know you. Welcome, welcome. Carolyn from Boston. Okay, so we have a few Boston ladies in here. Nice to see you all. I'm going to be sending you, Carrie as well. I'm going to be sending you all a quick poll. So if you could please take 1 minute to just answer these questions. It's for us just to gather some information about who's attending here. So let me launch the poll right now. All right, you should have 2 questions. The first question is asking you, are you a job-seeking software engineer? Let me know, are you on the job search? My presentation is gonna be really helpful for people who are on the job search. Of course, helpful for anyone, but especially geared towards people who are on the job search. Awesome, so I'm seeing a lot of ladies are on the job search, okay. Awesome, I'm gonna share the results with you all. It looks like most of you have voted. All right. All right, so I got that. And then I have one more question I'd love to ask you all, and then we'll go dive into my presentation. Second question, how many years of experience as a software engineer do you have? Ooh, Nicole, thank you for that shout out. I love how you know Zoom better than me. Awesome. So I think most people voted on this one. So we see majority of people are in, oh, it looks like we have a lot of new, maybe fresh grads on the scene. A good amount of people are in 1 to 3 years and 3 to 6 years as well. I'll share the poll results for you all to see. Awesome. Cool. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you again for sharing that information. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, so I hope you all can see it. And if you do have questions, please feel free to write it in the Q&A or write it in the chat, and we will have time at the end for some questions. I'll leave like maybe 10 minutes for some questions. So please make sure that you let me know what your questions are. I wanna be sure I can help you as much as possible. All right, so let me dive right in. Come on, technology, don't fail me today. Awesome, so navigating the tech space as a female engineer. And today we're gonna be focusing on specifically salary negotiations. So first and foremost, I wanna share a few statistics about just the gender wage gap specifically in tech, which I'm sure many of you are probably already aware of. So first and foremost, as you can see, there still exists a gender divide even in the tech industry, right? A report actually published by Catalyst, this is where I got this information, suggests that women in the science, technology, and engineering and math industries face career barriers as a result of a work culture that is unwelcoming to women. These are some of the barriers that they face. So women are less likely to enter the tech industry from the start, right? It looks like percentage opting for tech positions for first post-grad job is only 18%. But when they start, they begin at lower level jobs than men, right? So this is actually the percentage of starting at entry level positions, men versus women. Then they feel like outsiders in the industry, right? The majority of people in the tech industry are male. So it's already 73% they feel like an outsider in the industry. right? And they're less likely to move forward because of lack of role models and vague evaluation criteria. This is, again, percentage with a lack of role model. 18% of women feel they have a lack of role models in the workspace. I'm curious, do you guys agree with this? Do you feel, maybe put a 1 in the chat if you agree. Do you feel like you don't have a role model in the workplace right now? Would love to see your reactions. If you agree and feel like you don't have a role model, okay. Yeah, I mean, I bet a lot of other women can relate to you. And lastly, eventually women are more likely to leave the industry than men. As you can see here, it's 53% versus 31% leave the technology industry, right? This is a real thing. That's why you guys are here. I want to share just a few more stats. So the tech industry's gender pay gap is actually on the narrower side of the spectrum. However, men still earn more than women for equal work, right? And this is according to data company PayScale that I got this information. You can see here the tech and gender pay gap. It's complicated, right? Look at the stats in the middle, right? Tech industry, male dominated all levels. In the tech industry, there's only 21% of women in executive positions, only 32% in director positions, 28% in manager and supervisor positions, and majority of women looks like they're individual contributors, right? Does this surprise you? Does this surprise you? Or is anyone like, wow, I didn't realize there was this much gender disparity in the tech industry? Yeah, a lot of you are writing no, right? I'm sure a lot of you feel this way in tech spaces that you worked at before, where maybe you were the only woman on the engineering team. Maybe you were one of 2 women on the entire product team, right? This is something that we hopefully will close the gap on by getting more women into STEM at an earlier age, right? Nope, doesn't surprise me. Carolyn says, these stats are not shocking, but interesting to see it. Yeah. Awesome. And lastly, my last stat, I swear, as you can see here, the average man still makes more than the average woman in tech, right? And these are just the fame companies, the companies everyone wants to work at, right? The Apples, the Facebooks, the Googles. Still, men make significantly more than women for the same roles. 1 in 4 women think their gender has played a role in missing out on a raise, promotion, or chance to get ahead. Does anyone feel this way in their own roles? You can say yes in the chat if you feel this way. Yeah, I definitely have felt this way. I don't know about you guys, I've definitely felt this way. Yeah, exactly. All right. And some workplace trends, right? 26% of computing relating jobs are held by women. Just 3% of computing related jobs are held by African American women, 6% held by Asian women, and 2% held by Hispanic women. 50% of women say they have experienced gender discrimination at work. However, on a positive note for you all, I know this all sounds really negative, Debbie Downer. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but on the positive side, women's earnings are outpacing those of men's when it comes to high-skilled jobs, especially in the tech industry. So the gap is closing slowly, but it is closing more in the tech industry than any other industry. That's the good part, right? We have some hope on the horizon. All right, I'm gonna put a few poll questions. I would love to just see and get a pace of the room. My first question for you all is, have you ever negotiated your salary before? Please be honest, yes, no. Some people don't even know that this is an option. Have you negotiated your salary before? Yes, Marissa, I hope it gave you some hope. And hopefully after this session, you'll feel much better about going into salary negotiation conversations. All right, so it looks like, ooh, we have almost a tie between yes and no. We have a few more people who haven't voted, which is okay. I'll give another minute, maybe another like 10 seconds. Okay, I'll get a few more votes in. All right. Maybe get one more vote. I'm just curious because we're like neck and neck right now. Yes is, oh, we're almost even between yes and no. Okay, so I'm gonna end the poll. All right. So as you can see here, it's almost an even split, which makes me really excited because that means all of you have negotiated before, which is what you should be doing anytime you're on the job search, right? Anytime that you get an offer, you should negotiate. It is part of the process. And I know it's scary and I know it can be a little intimidating, but we're going to talk about ways that you can combat that intimidation. The second question I have for you all, and this exactly is about intimidation, right? What is it about salary negotiation that intimidates you? I'm going to launch the poll. I'm curious to see where you guys are at. Oh, Destislava, I thought I was sharing the poll result, the vote results. I'll try and share it this time. All right. I'm curious to see what is it that intimidates you the most about salary negotiation. And if it's not in this list, feel free to write it in the chat if I'm missing your reason, right? I would love to know, what is it that intimidates you the most about salary negotiation? Okay, we got almost all the votes in. So Catherine said, always feels like I have a chance to lose an opportunity just for bringing it up. And it happened to you. Pratik, they might choose another candidate who settles for less. Doubting my capabilities, the imposter syndrome. I should have put imposter syndrome in there, Kaz. Good one. On my final interview, they just straight ghosted me. I'm wondering, just putting it out there, right? I do a lot of career coaching. If a place ghosts you on a final interview, or if a place chooses another candidate who settled for less, do you want to work there really? So maybe it was a blessing in disguise, right? That they ghosted you, because maybe that would have been a shitty place to work in the first place, right? If they're ghosting you on something like a final interview, probably not the place for you anyway. Exactly. All right, I'm going to end that poll. Share the results. Okay, now I did it right, Destislava. Can you all see it now? Okay. So it looks like majority of the reasons is actually tied between I don't know how to approach the conversation and afraid my employer will dislike me. Okay, and then I see after that, the third response, discomfort in discussing money. Yes, that's a huge one. And after that, being told no. Again, if you don't ask, you'll never know, right? And gender discrimination and other. Okay, cool. It's good to get a pulse in the room of like where we're at. So it looks like I don't know how to approach the conversation and afraid my employer will dislike me are the main reasons. So we'll talk a little bit more about how to combat that, right? And how to really start this conversation. Cool. All right, so first and foremost, I said this earlier, but I really, really want to reiterate it. Negotiation is built into this process. Okay, when you are applying for a job, when you are putting all this time and effort into your resume, into getting interviews, into being interviewed, remember, recruiters are also spending time and money to recruit you, right? And interview you. So it's a process on both ends, right? You are actually selling your labor, right? And you're looking for someone to compensate for that. So negotiating does not show that you are a greedy person. It shows that you know your worth. And I want you to really get that mindset into your head. It is showing your worth to negotiate, right? And anytime someone gives you an offer, that is a contractual, that's an agreement, a mutual agreement, which is why negotiation is built into the process. Cool. All right. Just wanted to share just a few stats. Again, this is mainly for the job seeker. And it seems like we have a good amount of job seekers in this room right now. According to Monster, the average in-house recruitment cost of filling a vacancy in the tech industry using internal or external recruitment methods is around $9,000, right? But in Forbes, actually, in 2017, they said software engineers were among the top 10 most difficult and costly positions to fill in 2017. I know it's a little old, but still, right? It's still very relevant. On average, it takes 43 days to fill a position of a software engineer, which can cost the company over $31,000 in productivity losses. So think about it, $9,000 in just probably paying the recruiter, $31,000 in productivity losses trying to fill your role, right? So this is something to think about when you're on the job search, because you may be thinking, oh, if I got to the end, the final interview, I have to just settle for whatever they gave me or whatever they give me. And that is not the case, right? And it is not the case because they've spent now $9,000. They've lost $31,000 in productivity. They spent numerous hours either interviewing you or looking at your resume or having you speak to hiring managers or software engineers on the team, right? So at this point, they've invested into you. They are invested if they give you an offer. So now it is your opportunity to negotiate that investment, right? Cool. All right, so this is just talking about the initial base salary conversation. This may be one of the first calls that you have after applying to a role, right? Or maybe you got a referral, whatever it is. This may be one of the first conversations could be with the recruiter. And what we want you to take away from this is if a recruiter asks you, hey, Catherine, what is your current salary? First and foremost, in most states, not every state, but in most major states, it is illegal for a recruiter to ask for your current salary. And you don't have to say that, oh, it's illegal, but you can say, oh, I'd rather not disclose that information. I am looking to, move up in my career. And so I'm trying to see what salary range your company offers for my skill set, right? You do not have to tell them your salary range, nor should you tell them your current salary. Now, if they ask you, what is your preferred base salary? This is where we really want to try and have you deflect that question. Now, the reason we want you to deflect that question, because let's say, God forbid, you give a salary range that's actually a lot lower than what they were actually willing to pay you. Now you lowballed yourself, and it's really hard to negotiate up after that. So what we recommend is to deflect, right? You can say something, and I'll actually show you some language that you can use to deflect. But say someone goes, hey, Sarah, what is your preferred base salary for this role? The software engineer team at Uber. You could say something like, hey, Cristina, thank you so much for asking me that question. I'm just really interested in learning more about the roles and the responsibilities at the company before I can give you a range. Is there a range that you're looking to fill right now? Is there a range that you are hoping to provide me right now? Right? You want to push it onto them. You really want to push it back to the recruiter, right? So avoid telling them your base salary and avoid telling them a range. But if you have to give them a range, if they keep pushing it and pressing it and give you a range, you want to make sure that you've done some market research ahead of time so you know the average range for this role in this location, right, in this particular market, in this particular field. You could say something like, I'm looking for a range between 120 and 150K, but I'm open to understanding what the team is willing to offer for this role. That's something that you can definitely say to a recruiter. And again, you don't want to leave it to one number. You don't want to say, oh, I'm looking for 120K. You want to give a range, and you want to give a pretty large range. Awesome. Okay. Again, remember, this is both of you wanting to come to an agreement, right? In your mindset, you must believe you deserve what you are asking for and recognize that you earned the offer from likely hundreds of other candidates applying for the same position. You are special. If you get an offer, you are special. They have invested into you. The company mindset, they love you when they are extending you the offer, right? Understand what the company had to go through just to extend you the offer. Don't forget that. It's very important. Gives you power. You have power in the negotiation process with a recruiter. You're not the powerless one. Awesome. Research, again, I was talking about this, right? You don't ever want to show up somewhere unprepared, right? Because if you show up unprepared, then people can walk all over you, right? You want to make sure you've done the research. So in order to come into a negotiation prepared, you want to have learned What does the average software engineer with your amount of years of experience in this field, in this specific location make, right? Obviously, software engineers in the Bay Area are going to probably be paid much higher than a software engineer in Ohio, right? Or than a software engineer in Florida. And this is all due to base cost of living, right? So definitely you want to make sure that you've done your market research. Here are a few websites that I recommend. There's Glassdoor, Paysa, Payscale, Levels is great. Teamblind, salary.com. If there's any that I'm missing in here, please add them in the chat. Yep, Richie says Levels, yep, exactly. Paysa shut down? Good to know. I will remove that from the list. But these are just some resources that you can start doing your research, right? And be very intentional about this research. What kind of role are you applying to? Right? Is it senior level? Is it mid-level? Is it entry level? Okay, if it's entry level, what does the average entry level front-end engineer at this type of SaaS company in the Bay Area make? Right? You want to make sure that you are equipped with that research so that you can go in feeling confident about what your ask is. Cool. Again, mindset is crucial. I'm always going to talk about your mindset. Right? Again, you are the solution to the problem they are looking for, right? That's what engineers are. That's what you do, is you problem solve for companies. So you are actually a solution to their problems. And you need to go into the negotiation feeling that way and feeling confident in your abilities, confident in what you're asking for, because you know your worth. And when you know your worth, you'll have no problem asking for what you are worth. Again, this is mindset. So moving from a fixed to an open mindset, right? You don't want to have a deprivation mindset where you think, oh, I'm being greedy by negotiating. I'm unsure if what I'm asking for is reasonable. I should be grateful just to get a job offer and worried that I might mess things up, or if I negotiate, I might lose the offer, right? That is the fixed mindset. What we want you to think when you walk into, before you even get into the negotiation conversation, before you even have a conversation with the hiring manager or whoever it is who extended the offer, you want to start thinking about endless possibilities, right? Negotiating during a deal is normal. It's built into the process. You're not being difficult, right? You believe in what you are asking for, and you know what you're asking for because you did the research. You're not just walking blindly in and demanding that you make, I demand $150,000 because I am Cristina and I'm awesome, right? You don't want to go in like that. You can go in, I demand, I'm looking for the $160,000, $170,000 range. I did market research, and back-end software engineers with 10 plus years of experience in the South, San Francisco area on average are making about 170,000 K. Right? So you want to make sure you've gone in there with the facts. You've done your research. Okay? Lastly, remember that a job is a deal. It's an agreement, right? Between you and the company. You're agreeing to give these services and to solve these problems, and they're agreeing to pay you a certain amount of money for that labor, right? And think about it. The products you'll be building as an engineer, how much money is that going to make in the grand scheme of things for that company? Probably way more than what they're paying you, right? So think about that. Again, focus on what you can gain from this conversation, not what you can lose, right? You are what you believe in. So if you go in there with a confident mindset and you're like, I think I can come out of this winning, I know I can come out of this winning, you're going to come off much more confident during the negotiation conversation. And negotiating will not damage the relationship if you bring around that topic in a way that is not attacking, in a way that you can ask for what you're worth and show what you're worth. Cool. Again, just the basics. Negotiation is built into the process. It signals your seriousness, your competence, your understanding of your worth. All right, have you ever asked yourself, and these are for the people who are in their roles and maybe looking to get a promotion or a raise. I deserve a promotion or a raise, now what, right? One huge thing I recommend for anyone who is looking to have a conversation about pay raise or promotion is keeping your own journal, or maybe not even a journal, an Excel sheet of just your accomplishments for yourself, right? It's so important to keep somewhere all of the accomplishments that you've done in your role, right? So that when the time comes for evaluation, or if you want to bring up this conversation with your manager or supervisor or whoever it is, you have the data and the research to back you up. Oh, Joanne raised her hand. Do you have a question, Joanne? Hold on a second. Let's see if I can unmute you. All right, there's so many things open on my screen right now. Joanne Lee, right? Joanne Lee. Oh, Joanna. Oh, technical difficulties, you guys. Well, I'm going to save time at the end for questions, by the way. So if you want to wait till then, I'd be happy to answer your question. Oh. All right. And what about the people in the room who are on the job search and they're like, I have an offer, now what? Right? You got an offer. Maybe it's the job that you really want, right? And you're super excited about it. Or maybe it's a job you're like, it's okay. It's an offer. Let me see what I can get, right? Now what? Well, the 6 steps of negotiation are what, right? First and foremost, you want to be with that first phone call, that first offer call, sincere but neutral, right? Thank you so much for this offer. I'm really appreciative of it. Can you tell me more about the breakdown of the offer, right? Ask for a written offer. If a recruiter calls you over the phone and gives you an offer over the phone, never accept over the phone. Deflect, deflect, deflect. You want to push it to email. And the reason we asked you to push it to email is because, one, you want to have it in writing. You want to have the offer in writing. And you also want a paper trail, right? Secondly, it gives you more time to think about how you want to counteract the offer. If you do that over the phone, I will tell you right now, recruiters have way more experience negotiating than you do. This is their job. So you do not want to negotiate over the phone with them. We highly recommend trying to push them to email, right? So something like, hey, Cristina, you got the offer at Facebook for 150K. We'd love to have you join in the next few weeks. How does that sound? Thank you so much, Sarah, for the offer. I'm so excited to join the Facebook team. At this time, I do need a little bit of time to dissect the offer, learn a little bit more about what exactly you're offering me. Is there a way you could please send it to me via email? And I'd be happy to respond in the next week or so, right? So you really want to push them to email and do not accept an offer over the phone, right? We want to tell them we need some time to think about it. Maybe you want to assess the offer with your family. Maybe you're married and you want to say, hey, I really need, I'm so appreciative of this offer. I'm so excited to join the team. I do need to discuss this over with my family. If you could please send it over to me in writing, that would be great so I can review it and I can let you know by next Friday, right? How does that sound, right? Definitely want to push to email. And you can ask for more time to think it over, right? 2 weeks, this is a really big decision. I need to think it over with my family or with my partner, see how this is going to fit into my life, right? And of course, you always want to send a follow-up. You want to make sure that you're sending a thank you and confirming offer details. Lastly, contact other places you haven't heard back from and let them know that you got an offer, right? Maybe this was not the job you really wanted that gave you an offer, and the job you really wanted is taking a while to get back to you. You can let them know, hey, Facebook, I've been waiting on your response for a few weeks. I want to let you know that I did receive an offer from this other company. Facebook is still my #1 choice. So I was wondering if, we can get to some kind of solution, right? Can you send me an offer sooner rather than later? Because I really want Facebook. I really want to work at Facebook over Uber or whatever it may be, right? You can use it to kind of counteract and for leverage. Cool. Yeah, I use my husband as an excuse during many negotiations because it works. Yes, Anita. I love that. Awesome. Now, if you get, for example, an exploding offer, right, you can politely decline. I'm really excited about this company, but unfortunately, I can't consider this offer. I'm in the process with other companies, and there's no way I can make a decision in that amount of time. I will have to respectfully decline. Now, this is if somebody's telling you, you need to give me a response in the next 24 to 48 hours, right? It's okay to push back on them on the time, as long as you do it respectfully, right? Do not let anyone rush you, because this is going to be a decision that's a huge decision in your life. This is somewhere you're going to be working for at least 8 hours a day. That's a long time, right? So you want to make sure you're making the right decision and that you're getting the most of what you can out of this deal, right? And then the last thing I want to just discuss before I go into Q&A is what else is negotiable? And this one's so important. I love talking about this because I feel like so many women especially think that only salary is negotiable, right? But let me tell y'all, everything in life is negotiable. But even during your job search conversations, maybe they can't meet the salary requirements that you're looking for, but this company really aligns with you and you're super excited and you love the manager and they have a lot of mentorship opportunities and it's a great place to work. Well, what else can you give me, right? Can I get more paid time off? Can I maybe have every Friday off and I work 4 days a week? Can I get better equity, maybe like higher stock options? Can I get a signing bonus? Are you going to pay for my relocation expenses? What about my 401k plan? Can you match me at a higher rate, right? What other things can you get that would satisfy you and that are important to you besides salary? Salary is important, definitely, right? But there are other things that you can also negotiate for that I think a lot of people forget about. Maybe healthcare is really important. Maybe you have a family that relies only on your healthcare. So you want to have better coverage and maybe they can cover 80% of your healthcare versus 40%, right? Whatever it may be, everything is negotiable. Vacation days for sure, definitely. Salary, how many non-salary items is too many items to negotiate? Again, there's no cap on it, right? But I would say stick to what is a priority to you. So if for you, you really love taking vacations, post-corona, when we can leave the country, say you really love taking vacations, right? Then maybe that's what's really important to you. And so you're like, okay, I really like taking vacations. I want to make sure I have 30 PTO days a year. Can I negotiate that? Sally, there's no like one or right answer. I would say like maybe 2 or 3 that are really a priority to you. Probably be best. Cool. Okay. I don't think we're going to have time to go through everything. So this is my last slide before I open it up to some Q&A. So how much can you negotiate? I'm just letting you know a little bit about general, stats. Generally, 0 to 20% is what you can negotiate, right? Especially for someone applying to a new role. And again, this is dependent on your leverage. At your role, like say you want to apply for a promotion or you think you deserve a raise or you deserve a raise because you've been busting your butt, right? Again, you can ask for a raise between 0 and 20% dependent on your leverage. And this leverage, again, is that list of accomplishments of how you have provided value to the company, right? That's your leverage, your performance. Maybe if you're a job seeker, other offers is leverage, right? Maybe knowing their range is leverage, right? Whatever it may be, you can use as leverage during this negotiation conversation. Cool. Oh, and potential. It's a big one, right? And by potential, I mean something like grit, hard work, ethic, dedication, passion for the company. If they're able to see those things in you, they know you're not going to leave anytime soon and that you actually care about the company, you care about the product, right? You're invested emotionally, mentally, right? So they see potential in you. Awesome. All right. So in the interest of time, I would love to ask if anyone here has any questions for me. Let's see, I'm going to check the Q&A. All right, I see 2 questions so far. Desislava, what about negotiating in more corporate environments with fairly fixed and very defined compensation levels? I've come across this in the past. I've tried negotiating the base salary, they didn't budge. Then I tried negotiating the benefits, PTO, they again didn't budge because it's the same for everyone, or based on years with the company. I ended up taking the job because it was a good position for me at the end of the day, but I left the negotiation feeling defeated and uncomfortable that I tried and was completely turned down. Okay, good question. And I'm sure several people can probably relate. I can relate. I've been in that situation before. I guess my question for you is, did you do any research at the company to see if other people had been able to negotiate, to see if other people in maybe your same role were getting paid the same amount as you were? Were you able to find any of that information out? Let me see. I can actually, Desislava, I might unmute you. Does that work? Are you cool with that? So you can kind of explain the situation? Hold on. You can talk. Oh, no, you don't want to talk?
Right. Can you hear me?
Oh, yay.
Hi.
Hi.
So yeah, to answer your question, it was both yes and no, I guess. I wasn't really able to find much information about like people who were newer to the company or like in exactly the same role as myself. But then there were people that had been with the company longer that definitely had some custom arrangements made, like what you mentioned, you know, some of them were working only 4 days a week type of thing. But yeah, there wasn't much of that information available or offered up.
So when you first had, so this is, I'm assuming during the negotiation phase, like when you accepted the offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Had you done the market research? Did you know what other people were being paid for this same type of role and this same type of industry? Like, did you have all that information on hand?
Yeah, I think at the time I definitely felt like I was prepared, and it wasn't a bad offer by any means. It could have been better. Definitely. Actually, my biggest thing that I wanted more of was PTO, and they just would not even touch that because, again, apparently it was based on corporate, and you know, if you've been with the company 6 months, you get 5 days or whatever. If you've been with the company 12 months and this and that. So initially I wasn't sure. I guess my question really is that ever really the case? Like, is it ever really that final?
Some
Yeah, I guess
companies,
that's what I'm trying to understand. If they would
no,
change
that's
that,
a
or if
great
that's
question. Some companies are very anal about things like that. I worked at,
okay.
and I'll give you an example for myself. I won't tell you where, but I did work at a company that was very revered, and everybody thought it was a really awesome place to work. And I went in, and it was the same thing. They actually had accrued PTO. It was a tech company, and they had accrued PTO, which I'm like, who the hell does that? And
Yep, it was the same here with this one. Yep.
yeah, so you know what happened? I thought it was weird, right? I remember thinking, this doesn't seem right. And I ended up accepting the offer because they gave me a good compensation, and I didn't do my proper research, and I actually ended up hating it there. I absolutely hated it there. And I realized that the reason they didn't give people PTO is because they actually ultimately didn't trust their employees, and they wanted to micromanage every single thing that they did. I ended up leaving after 6 months. So I don't know what ended up happening to you in this particular example, but a lot of times in the beginning, if you're seeing this type of, you know, kind of not accommodating at all to you, no empathy, no compassion, they don't care, right? And that's something that's very important to you, then maybe that's not the best place for you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point and probably a good indicator. That fortunately that wasn't my experience. Actually, that's something that was kind of scaring me off from just taking the offer and being happy with it, because I was like, oh my God, if these people are so rigid about everything, how is this going to work?
That's what I'm saying. If they're this rigid about the salary, they're probably going to be rigid about everything.
But then I had met with the team, obviously, and I really liked them, and I went with that. And ultimately, yeah, the team that I was on and my manager at the time, he was awesome. So it ended up being a very good experience. It just kind of left me kind of defeated at the time. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have even tried to negotiate. And is it really that rigid, or are they just saying that? But ultimately it worked out. I was just wondering in the future, is it ever that defined? And it sounds like sometimes it is.
Some places are not willing to budge, right? Again, you went in, sounds like prepared. You had the market research, you had the backup, you were ready to ask, you know, for, okay, if you're not able to budge on salary, what about other benefits? Like paid time off. I'm sure you gave a valid reason why you wanted more paid time off, and they were still like, no. Then it's up to you, right? Then it's ultimately up to you. Okay, is this something I'm willing to accept or not?
Yep.
Right? So, but I'm glad that you asked, because at least you know. It's better than not asking and never knowing, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing your story. Yeah, no problem. I'll answer maybe, let's see, I think I'm over time, but I'll take like one or two. Fanida, cool name. I got an offer for an entry-level role that's 3,000K less than the average. How can I go about asking for more raised salary? I think you just said it right now, right there in that message. You know what the industry average is for this role at this particular, maybe in this particular field, in this space, right? Wherever you're located. Make sure you do the research for where you are located, for the amount of years of experience. How much is somebody making at this entry-level position? Same entry-level position at other tech companies. I'm assuming it's a tech company. And come in with that research, right? You did the research, you know, okay, I actually did the research, and an average, you know, front-end engineer entry level is actually making $65,000, you know, how can I get there, right? Why is there a way that I could potentially be making between 65 to 75,000? The other thing I recommend here is always ask for 10,000 more than what you really want. And the reason I tell people this is because say you want 90,000, ask for 100, right? Because then the recruiter is going to probably talk you down to 90,000, and they feel like they're winning and you feel like you're winning. You're actually winning, right? Because you got what you wanted. You gave some room for leverage, a little room there for padding, right? I hope that was helpful. Evelyn, I'll take this last question and then I'm going to present Sarah to you guys. But Evelyn says, after you get a salary range from the recruiter, what is a good response to continue the conversation? I was asked this and I answered with a disappointed oh, which was awkward for both of us. All right, so I'm assuming gave you a salary range that you probably were not happy with, which is why you said oh, right? I'm assuming it was not a good oh. So what I would say in this case is, okay, well, good to know. Is there any way for this role to potentially offer whatever range it is that you were looking for, right? And if they did tell you, actually at this time, you know, due to budget restraints or due to whatever the reason is, we are not able to offer you more than, let's say 75, right? 75K. Now, again, it's up to you, right? They gave you the information, they let you know they probably cannot offer you more than that. So now it's up to you to decide, okay, is this something that I want to accept or not? Right? Awesome. Okay, so with that said, I am going to share one more quick poll with you all, and then I'm going to present you all to Sarah, who's going to be giving an awesome presentation for all the engineers in the room. It was really nice meeting you ladies. Hold on one second. All right, first question. Awesome. First question is, would you be interested in learning more about Outco's 2.5-hour-long job search refresh? I hope this was helpful to some of you ladies, especially the job-seeking ladies. Negotiate your worth, ladies. Know your worth. Don't feel bad for asking for more money. You got bills to pay. Awesome. Let's see. I'm really curious. I have one more question. Let's see. Again, this is for our info sessions. If you are interested in joining Outco, I am one of the coaches at Outco. We have an amazing group of coaches that'll help you build your confidence, get the offer that you want. So if you are interested in joining us and on the job search and need that extra push, some of that extra support, I swear the police aren't here for me. Join us. Awesome. I'm glad this was helpful. That's what I'm here for. I want to get you all paid. Get your money. Awesome. All right. So without further ado, if you can answer that last poll, I am going to introduce the lovely Sara Daqiq, who is my colleague. I'm very lucky to call her my colleague. She is also a current engineer at Uber, and she is also one of our tech coaches at Outco. And now she's going to close the event and discuss the technical topic of how web authentication works. And she will dive deep into sessions, cookies, ID tokens, and access tokens. Please take it away, Sara.
Thank you so much, Cristina. I love your energy. Hi, everybody. My name is Sara. I am, as Cristina said, a software engineer at Uber. And on evenings, I'm also working with Outco. And I'm very glad to be here today. A couple of things. First of all, I apologize that I do not share the energy that Cristina has. And I wish one I will be able to. Second thing, I will look into this way a little bit. That's because my screen is there, so I have two screens. And the other reason for that is that my profile in here looks better. So excuse me if I'm not looking directly at the camera. That being said, let's get started. Let me see if you guys see my screen. Okay, you guys see my screen? Oh, I forgot you guys cannot answer. So I assume you guys do because I see it myself here. We are going to talk about web authentication today and how it works. It's a huge topic. And the reason I'm covering it is before Uber, I was working at a company called Okta. Okta is, if you guys have not heard of Okta, and have heard of One Login, it is an identity and access management company. And what that means is that you want to, how do you share, if you have two different websites that they are independent of each other, how do you share that data? For example, if you try to sign up into, in some of your jobs, I'm pretty sure you guys either have had One Login, Okta, or something like that. And what happens is that you log into one application, in this case Okta or One Login, and then that application gives you permission to all other applications you have, Workday, payroll, and all that. That way you don't have to keep creating accounts in different portals, and everything is just in the same at the same view. So and I was a developer support engineer in there, and what I was doing was helping developers build these authentication systems and integrate it with their work. So let's dive into what we are going to talk about today. Today our agenda is going to be, I'm going to go over what creating a web application means, like what is a web application. Then we're going to talk about data flow. So how do you send data between the application or within the application? We're going to talk about hashing, SSL, sessions and cookies, and at the end, we're going to talk about OpenID Connect. So let's get started. Let me paint a scenario for you. So I am going to a restaurant. I look at the menu and I interact with the waiter and order food. The waiter takes that order, takes it to the back room to the chef. Chef interacts with the freezer or fridge, gets some food out and prepares it and processes it, and then sends the data back, sends the food back, right? In this scenario, the client side is you and interacting with the waiter. The waiter is the HTTP request, the data transfer between the backend and the front end. And then the server side or the backend is composed of two parts. One of them is storing data and being able to store data like long-term or short-term, and the other one is processing that data. So let's say you either update the data or you get it or you delete it and all that. So compare this to a web application, right? So web application, I have pages that I need to interact with, sign up, sign in, dashboard, and things like that. And then it goes through over internet, right? It goes through the backend processing. The backend processes the developer who have built it, and we do not have access to it as users. But the developers gets your information from the front end, goes through the internet, goes to the backend, and then in the server, you what you do is that you just okay. So in the server, you process the data and then you store the data in the backend in the database. Okay, so exactly the same scenario of the restaurant, but in this term, it's with web app. So let's look at kind of like what a front end will look like. Don't worry about all this HTML tags. The only thing that it does is just when you create the front end, you have HTML page, right? You have a label, like for example, name, and then you have an input field, like that collects data, what user information you want. And the other important thing about this is that it has some kind of like, let's say in this scenario, it has some kind of saying that, okay, once you collect this data, send it to /register. So /register is something that the server will notice, right? Will know what that is. And the method is like, okay, post it. That means update it or create a new account for this with the information that you have. So if you look at sign-in page, this is exactly the same thing. You will have a form, and you will have a different address. In this scenario, the address is /login, right? And so on and so forth. So the username and the password and all that is going to be entered in the client side, and then it's a simple form or whatever you would like to create it with. Now the front end is done. So all the data is going to be going through the internet to the server, and then the server saves that data or updates it or whatever processes it needs to do, and then stores it in the database. So the database will have some tables specifically for, like, let's say user profile will have a table, and then the other table will be like credit cards information and things like that. Okay, so this is the whole structure of what a web application will look like. So front end communicating through the with back end through the internet. Okay, so now that we have covered that, let's walk through a data flow. Okay, so I'm going to this website. I really like it, so I'm going to sign up. I'm going to put my full name, username, and password, and I'm going to put my email address. Okay, so when I submit that information, it's going to be created this for the sake of reducing the complexity down. So let's say it's going to create a JSON object. Okay, JSON object is just a format of data. It doesn't matter what kind of data it is. You create that, and then you kind of put it in a letter. So you put it in like how you have a letter and it has a to and from. And other security issue measurements that you need to get, because you're sending it, you put it through an envelope, right? An envelope will have some security measures in addition to and from and things like that. And then you send it over the internet to the /register, the address that my form had in the front end, right? Now, what happens is that when I get that in the back end, what I'm going to do is, okay, so what I'm going to do is that all that information from the front end goes to the server side, and then it stores that information that I have. It stores in the database. Okay, so something like this. Now, I would like to ask you guys, what if you guys see anything wrong with this? You can use the chat. I can see the chat here. Anything wrong with storing the data like this? Okay, security, password is in plain text, good job. Anything else? Yeah, perfect. So the problem with this is that's exactly what you guys said. The problem with this is that when you store your password like this, imagine your website gets hacked and people have access to your database. This scenario, they just know that everybody's plain text password, right? That's not cool. So now we need to figure out some ways to reduce this risk, okay? So we're going to go to a little bit general and talk about some kind of like security consideration or password security consideration, and then we're going to come back to this and see how we can fix this, okay? So let's look at some password security consideration. I suggest you guys look at Nest and other security like web organizations that has password security considerations. They keep changing, but generally it's pretty similar, okay? So as a developer, you do not want to have, as a developer and as a user, you do not want to have a password that is in a dictionary. The reason for that is what? Can you guys write it in the chat? Okay, so the reason with that is exactly, yeah, a dictionary attack. So that means that I, as a hacker, can come and I'm gonna download a dictionary from somewhere and I'm gonna try every word from the dictionary in your password. I'm gonna insert it, and then I have your password. Okay, so as the other thing is that as a developer, you may want to have some additional securities in your website. For example, the input type of your password should be password. That way the HTML kind of like blurs it out. Have you guys seen when you write your password, it doesn't show, it kind of shows the circles. So it does that. So simple, tiny changes that can increase the password or the security password, okay? So minimum character requirements. Do you guys think it's good or bad? Yeah, minimum character requirement is good, but having too strict of a rule for minimum character requirements is also not good. So you have to find a middle ground on that and update yourself with the latest security protocols with the Nest, okay? The reason it's not good if you have too much of, like, let's say you say, I want your minimum character requirement to be like 28 digits or 28 characters. What people will do is that they will write the same 28 characters, and then each time they need to change it or they need to update it, they will just increment it by 1. So it will be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So use caution in that. Check against common passwords. So people have passwords online. I'm pretty sure if you Google common passwords, you will see a lot of passwords online, right? And what they can do is that, same as a dictionary attack, they will just upload the file, run through it, and keep submitting it through a program. It's not that hard. Keep submitting the input through a program until they get the passwords that your password. So as a developer, what you might need to do is that you, when a password is updated or generated, you can also check it against the common password and see if it is too common, or if it is in the file that you're keeping track of, just don't accept it. Okay, so this is something that developer and the user have to do together. Okay, password attempts. Would it be a good thing to have password attempts or bad things? Okay, I'll answer it for you guys. The password attempts are good because imagine if you have, imagine if you have password attempts of, let's say, 5 or 10, the dictionary attack won't work, right? The checking against the common password won't work. So you're preventing a lot of misuse like that. And then password complexity is good or bad. I'm going to go through this a bit fast. So password complexity is also kind of like a double-edged sword, the same as the minimum character requirement. Okay, you don't want to have saying, have you guys have, I'm pretty sure you guys all have been to this website that has so many character requirements that you can really get tired of trying to create the password. It will have like 2 uppercase, 4 lowercase, a dot, a squiggly line, and then a couple of like digits, right? And it becomes very annoying and user unfriendly. When it is user unfriendly, people try to stick to simple and the same password over and over again with increment. Okay. Then when you're trying to change passwords, you make sure that you re-authenticate the user. The reason is that somebody can get access to your account. They will just change your password, therefore revoking your access to your account, right? And then this safe error handling is very interesting. What I mean by that is that imagine you go to a website, you put your username and password, and the password says, hey, you're missing an uppercase character. Now you have narrowed down everything except an uppercase character, right? So let's say you put an uppercase character. Then the next error is going to be, hey, you're missing a digit, right? So then you keep adding digits. You see how you narrow down, if you're giving too specific of error, you're narrowing down the scope that the hacker has to work with, and that's why it's easier for them to hack your account. Does that make sense? So this is like the opposite of what programmers do. Usually you want to have really specific error handling, but in this scenario, just use the middle ground and make sure that you do not give too much information out so they can modify your password, or they can come up with your password. Okay, that being said, let's go back to our kind of our thing that we were working with the password. Let's talk about hash first, okay? So what is hash? I will get my password, the password that I entered, and I'm going to send it through. I'm going to ask them, I'll be like, okay, give me 61 characters. Go through the hash, okay? So it's a hash function. Don't worry about what that hash function is, but I'm saying that I'm giving it a text and I'm giving it a length, okay? So I'm giving it, okay, my password is hello@you. I'm saying, give me 61 characters. This hash function is going to generate a bunch of random characters, okay? That is the random characters that it creates. The cool thing about this hash function is that it will take very easy. It is very easy for this hash function to, what do you say? It's very easy for this hash function, or whatever this function is, to change this text and this to these characters. But it will take a long time to do it vice versa. So that's why password works, because it takes computationally a long time to change that random characters, random length of characters that you see to hello@you. Okay, so that's what hashing is. And the hashing is the other thing about hashing is, or we are counting on, is that if I change the input text slightly, it's going to give me a different set of characters. It's not predictable. It's not like, oh, it's going to add an L at the end of the first value. It's not like that. It's a totally different set of characters. Okay, and they're not related together. All right, so the cool thing about hash is that it's one way, right? One-way encryption, and then it changes as soon as the value changes, the input value changes a little bit, it will change the output dramatically. Okay, so let's talk about hashing a little bit more. It's not encryption. We will talk about what encryption is. It's a one-way process, so we are actually counting on it, but we are going to go to the next level, the next step, which is hash collision. Sometimes what happens is that when you have an input, you will get a set of hash values, and then what you can do is that you will have a totally random different input, and they will have the hash table or hash function will create the same exact value in return. So that's called hash collision. And how do people stop that is they will have something called salt, which is a bunch of random string or characters that will be stored in a table or in a database, in your database, in a table in your database. So, and then that will connect to, that will be added to your hash when you're trying to decode it, okay? Then there is a rainbow table. So what rainbow table is that there has been, since the beginning of computers, there has been hashes that, or hash functions that has been weakened because the computer processing time has increased so much, or because of trial and error of people, right? For example, like the hash of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is already available online. So what they do is that they try all these passwords. Let's say they have your your hash. They try it against all the rainbow table, all the hash values, and then whichever one is, they know your password now, right? Then what you can do is that there are some hash functions where, because because of maybe complexity and things like that, developers try to truncate the password. So what they do is that they ask you for 12-character passwords. They only take a hash of the first 4 characters, right? That, I don't need to tell you guys how that reduces the security of the hash. So imagine all this goes away and we have very good, all the process is good. We will have something like this in our table now. Instead of earlier password being just explicit, now we have a hash of that password. Okay, now that I have a hash of that password, what I can do is that next time I try to log in, I will write my password. The server will process that password and they're going to get at the same hash of that password. Then that hash will be compared to this hash. If they are the same, they know that you're the right person. If they are not, then you know that they are not. That way, the developers or the database is not storing your password. Okay, so now that we are done with that, let's talk about something else. Okay, so now I'm putting I go to sign up, I put my username and password, and let's talk about how the data goes. So we know now how to somehow a little bit more than how to somehow like store our data or our password in the database, right? How about when we transport that data? What happens at that time? Okay, so we're going to walk through that. Something is called SSL. Okay, so SSL is 2 things. One is that it encrypts data. So now we're talking about encryption. Let's imagine that I have this data that I have created in my sign-in page, right? And sign-in page created a JSON object, right? It's a form of data. What happens is that it goes through an encryption. SSL encrypts that data, okay? And then it creates a bunch of characters, okay? So now this random number of characters is going over the internet. It's not it's the encrypted data that's going through the internet, okay? It's not the value, the data itself. Now when you go to the server, server will have some kind of function that's called decrypt that data, and then it's gonna, when it decrypts the data, it's gonna get the object value that you need, okay? Now, what happens, or what does what does stop a hacker from intercepting this data or this encrypted data from the HTTP or when you're doing HTTP call or sending the data over the internet? What stops this hacker or this information from this hacker being able to decrypt that data as well? Does that make sense, what I'm asking? So if I am sending the data encrypted, right, over the internet, if somebody else thinks that they are me and they get the encrypted data, what stops them from decrypting it? Do you guys have, if you guys have any idea, please feel free to share it in the chat. Yeah. Sally said keys. keybase. Okay, so what stops them? Sally is on her iPad. What stops them is the next step of SSL, which is called identification. So everywhere you go, you will have this connection and certificate from this guy. There is this guy. The reason you know that the client is who they say they are and the server is who they say they are is because the client and the server talks to this other guy that's called certification authority, okay, or the certificate authority. Certificate authority is present like everywhere, okay, so every server, every application, all of them has that. Certificate, the client and certificate of authority talks, and way before anything happens, they have established a trust, like way before anything happens, okay? And that means that the client and the certificate of authority knows who the client is, okay? Now, the server also have similarly have established a trust between the server and certificate of authority. So certificate of the authority is the only one who knows that client is who they say they are and the server is who they say they are. Okay, so it goes into deep into that, but we don't have to go to networking. But the point in here is that when the client sends the data to the server first says, hey, is this guy who they say they are? For example, if the client is Tom. Tom sent Bob, the server, some data, and then Bob is going to call his buddy, I don't know, somebody in DMV or something, say, hey, is this guy Tom, who they say they are? And certificate of authority is going to say, yeah. And then now server is able to decrypt that data and get the information, and he knows that it's the right source. All right, so if you are not the client and you are like a hacker, you won't be able to get authenticated by or identified by the certificate of authority. Okay, so let's go back to data flow. Now I put my username and password in here, and then what happens is that the data is created. It goes through an envelope of some kind, right? It's an envelope that has to and from, content type, and all that. It has headers. And then it goes to the slash register, the endpoint that the server wants it to have, or the server needs to receive that data from. Okay. Now the register saves that data to the database. Let's look at some other ways that the database could be attacked. Okay. One of them is called SQL injections. By the way, all these are not the only things that are attacked, but they are very common. Okay, and let's imagine what the SQL injection is. What happens is that, let's say in your server, you said that, okay, select everything. This is an SQL statement or query that says select everything from you. When you get this username and password, go through the table, select everything from the table, the user's table. Remember, we had a table in the database, and you're saying where the name is equal to name, whatever the user gives, and the password is equal to whatever the password is. Okay. Now, when that happens, I inject the username and password. When somebody writes the username and password, you inject it into your SQL injection or SQL query and send it to the to your database, right? What is the problem with this? Okay, the problem is that you give the user direct access to your database. So what they can do is that they can say, okay, right, instead of the username and password, they can put their username, right? And let's imagine in this scenario, this is or, but let's imagine you saying, okay, put whatever the username that I am giving. So let's say Sara Daqiq as the username. And then you say the password is or equal to 0 equal to 0. When I say that, the statement is true, right? The statement, no matter what the username is or no matter what the password is, the statement is true. And then the data that is returned is not the data that you would like the user to see. Okay, so SQL injection is when you give the user direct access to your database And that's how they, through the forms and things like that, they manipulate your database and they will and get information that they should not have access to, right? So let's go to the next section, which is sessions and cookies. Okay, so why do we need sessions and cookies? First of all, what does it solve? Imagine I logged into my application already. I signed up and logged in. So I created a dashboard, and I go to the dashboard, and it asked me to log in. So I put my username and password in. And then I go to the next page, which is the home page, right? Or the accounts page, or to my accounts page. And then in this scenario, it will ask me for my username and password again, because it doesn't know that these users have already logged in before. Okay, so that's what we are trying to solve. What we are going to do is that when I try to log into my dashboard, I put in my username and password. Somehow the browser remembers that next time I request something from the server, the browser remembers who that person is and sends that identification with them. Okay, so let me give you another example in this scenario. And this is Bob. Bob goes to Las Vegas because he has a conference. Okay, he has a conference in Las Vegas. And what happens is that he goes to his hotel. He goes to his hotel and says to the receptionist, hey, I'm Bob, here's my ID. The receptionist checks it and says, okay, you have a reservation. And then the receptionist creates some kind of profile for him, right? You will have credit card, room service, and all that. And then the receptionist gives him a key that doesn't have any of his information, right? And that is just a room key. Okay, so in this scenario, the key is the cookie, and then the profile, the session, the profile that you have about that person is the session. Another example would be, let's say you go to Starbucks. I don't go to Starbucks, so excuse me if this analogy is wrong. You go to Starbucks, and then because you're regular there, what you can do is that you have maybe a tag, right? You go to Fitness Safe, have this, so you have a tag where it just a serial number. Okay, you don't have to give your identification each time to the barista. What you can do is that scan the serial number, right? And then the barista knows that, okay, the barista gets all the information it has about you in her profile, in her computer. And it has like, oh, you have ordered, you're like a gold customer or premier customer or whatever, right? So the tag, the identifying tag that you have is going to be the cookie, and then they profiled all the information that they have about you is going to be the session. Okay, so cookie is in the browser, the front side, the front end, and then all the information about that user is going to be in your server. All right, so let's go to how this this is exactly what I explained in a bit. So what happens is that as soon as you log in, you sign in, and then this when server sends data, it will send something called cookie as well, and then it's going to be saved in your browser. And the next time when you go to home is going to request something from the server as well, but it also will send the cookie with it. So that way the server knows that, oh, I don't need to re-authenticate this person. Okay, so that's basically nothing else except the cookie. It will have a header in HTTP request or HTTPS request, and it will have the name of the sessions and cookies. Okay, there are a few things that as a developer you should kind of like take care of, is that it should be HTTP only. So there are some flags that you need to take care of when you have the cookie. One of them is going to be HTTP only. The other one is going to be secure. The other one is going to be ephemeral. And then the other one is going to be same site. So these are like some of the flags that you need to be really careful to set when you're sending back and forth sessions. And let's say I'll just go to one of the example, like ephemeral. What happens is that you want to have your session expire, right? You want to, if you log into an internet cafe, you don't want it to be open indefinitely, or it doesn't die. Or if you want to log out, it should delete, right? Same side is when you want to delete that when you want to only have access to the same site's cookie. Okay, So all of them are important. I suggest you guys look at it. So let's look at an attack now. What is an attack? CSRF attack is very common. What happens is that, let's say Tom goes to the Vegas thingy again, and he talks to the receptionist authenticates him and all those things, creates a profile, and then what happens is that Tom feels like he needs to go to the bar. Okay, he gets the ID, he gets his room card, and he goes to the bar. Now Ben here knows that Tom has a room key, so Ben quietly steals the room key from Tom, goes to the room, grabs his Tom's stuff, and leaves. Right? Tom did not give access to his information, but Ben was able to still get the stuff that he needed, or the stuff that he wanted, I guess. Okay, so that's called a CSRF attack. Tom or Ben disguised himself as Tom. Okay, so in order to avoid that, what you do is that as soon as the login happens from the server or from the client end, you will send something called CSRF tokens. That way, you know that the only person who have access to your sending you that information is, or the server knows that the only person who have access to that information is the client or the person who they say they are. Okay, so all you need to do is just have an input, type hidden, and then it's gonna call it CSRF token. Okay, so what is OpenID Connect now? First of all, let's figure out what are the problem we are going to try to solve. Okay, the problem is that we know how to share sessions between two pages of the same site. But what if I want Amazon to have my information from Google or from Facebook, right? You guys have definitely seen this in your sign-up page, which says, okay, log in with Amazon or log in with Google, right? What happens there? You're basically saying that you're telling Google, hey, Google, I need I need my information from you to be sent to Amazon. Okay, so that's the problem that we are going to try to solve, sharing between two different independent sites, and that's what OpenID Connect solves. And you guys have used it in some capacity or the other. So the problem with sharing password, if OpenID Connect didn't exist, which it didn't until like 2008, I believe, this is what the problem was. People would ask you for your plain password. So if you wanted Amazon to get access to your Google, Amazon will ask for your password, right? They will have full access. If you did that, they will have full access to your account, right? For your Google account. And then what they could do is that they would go to your Google account, change your password, and then boom, you're kicked out of your own account. Right? And I don't have to tell you guys a lot more about this, because I'm pretty sure everybody knows what is the implication of having to share password is, right? So let's jump in. You have the client side. What you do is that the client side is going to look at the go through the cloud or the internet. It goes through something called, this is a new thing. Okay, so the server is super tired of, I will write the whole thing and then explain. So the server, because I was like, okay, give me, authenticate this user, authenticate that user, the server got really tired of doing all the authentication, that it got really too much crowded. So it was like, okay, I'm done with this so much authentication going back and forth. Let me do my job. I'm going to create a server, something else that will take care of it. So the server created something called authorization server. Okay, authorization server is just another server, right? You create an authorization server that only takes care of identity and access. Okay, so when you receive a user, it goes through the identity and access and it says, hey, is this user authenticated? Access is correct. If it is, then sends the server an ID token. That ID token says, okay, this user has access to this many data, and this is the data that they were asking for. Okay, so authorization server is just another server that handles identity information. Okay, so now one login and Okta, all these companies, all like a different authorization server that they're hosting on the cloud. Okay, so let's go to an example. Okay, so I go to Heroku.com. Check out the domain here. Okay, so for example, this one is www.heroku.com. Okay, as soon as I log in, it goes through this identity or ID authorization. This domain is id.heroku.com. Right, this is different than Heroku.com. As soon as I log in, as soon as I click login, it goes through id.heroku.com. It's a different server. Okay, a different endpoint. Now, actually, I forgot to mention that. See, I'm asking the scope. I can identify different scopes. For example, in this scenario, I'm asking for like user profile information. I can ask for more things. I can define them. Okay, so I'm saying that once you get the ID information from the id.heroku.com, you direct me to the callback URL. Okay, I get redirected to the callback URL. You exchange some token to authenticate both ends. Then what you do is that you give an ID token to the either access token or ID token to your dashboard. This is the dashboard was the end user, the end goal that you had, but you had to go through different steps, right, to different domains to get to the dashboard. And once you are in the dashboard already knows who you are and says, hello, Sara, and you have access token or ID token, whichever one you request. Okay. Now let's look at this in action. So I look at that. I log in, and as soon as I log in, if you look at the top, it says ID, and then when I log in, it changes me to dashboard. Okay, so these are different websites that you are handling with right now. Okay, so OpenID Connect, it does all the information you said. Let me see. Okay, so in addition to what we did earlier, which we covered it all, right? We did ID token, access token, all these steps we have already covered. The other thing that you want to do is when you have ID token or access token, you also need a session, and your session should have all this information that we talked earlier. For example, it's max age, HTTP only, secure, same site, and all that. You should have that data still. It's still applicable. Okay. Now, the next thing that I want to talk to you about is the benefits of this token. What does this token, ID token or access token, do differently that password couldn't? Okay. The first one is that the token that you get, it's like an ID token, an access token. ID token is when it has identifying information about the user. Access token is when that person have access to that resource, but they don't have identifying information about the user. Okay, so it's basically the same setup. The client-side storage. So remember we were saying that before this, the session was stored in the backend in the server, right? There was only a key that would hook this information to the front end. Now you can store that ID token in client-side if you like. Okay. Now JWT is also a format of the data. So we will go into the JWT and see what that is right now. It's a self-contained JSON object. What that means is that it is like a JSON object, okay, that has a bunch of more information in it. It's digitally signed, so it's signed so people cannot steal it, and it's encoded. Okay, so an ID token looks like this, and then you can, this is the header, this is the payload, and this is the signature. Signature verifies the information that you have in the payload and the header. Now, when you decode it, you just get like something like this, all the data that you needed, right? Okay. So now let's look at the token lifetime. Now this ID token and access token, you can revoke it. You can give them 5 seconds, give this access token to a website for 5 seconds, for 1 second, for 20 days, for forever, whatever, but you can revoke it. If you need to, you can revoke it. Way better than password, right? You can extend the life. So let's say I want you to have access to my website for 2 hours, but then I ask you to do something more, so I can extend it to 4 hours. and it separates roles. So if you're an admin, I can give you a token that has more responsibilities and more features and access than if you're a contractor, right? You say saves and protect data. All right. So that is it from me. Thank you so much for listening. I know that was a lot of babbling from my side. Please feel free to ask me questions, ask me anything, even if it's not regarding to my presentation, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you so much. You can ask in the QA section, I think. You're welcome. No problem, you're welcome. I think you guys got a poll, so please answer that as well if you guys don't have any questions. I'm glad you guys liked it. All right, I don't see any question, but I see, let's see. Okay. Oh, that's a good question, Pooja. The hashing should be done in the back end because you can do it in the front end as well, but the hashing should be done in the back end in the server side because you just don't want to send data back and forth. But it is a design decision. You can do it either way. Guys, if you guys need to connect me on LinkedIn, please feel free. If you guys have any question in the future, let me know on LinkedIn and I'm happy to answer. And yes, I would love to connect with you guys on LinkedIn. Okay, just so I know for the panelists, are we good? Do we have anything else to share? Richie, Cristina? Okay, that is it. I will wait here for a bit. If you guys would like to stay, please feel free to stay. And other than that, have a great evening or night, wherever you guys are. It was nice talking to you guys.